Laid out here are all the parts I'm going to need to complete bag E, which is steps 26 to 31. So what I'll do is I'll remove the various bits from the trees, set the servo to neutral, and then come back and show you the assembly. In laying out my parts for steps 26 through to 29, the two M3 8mm tapping screws for securing the servo mounts aren't in bag E. But there is this mystery bag of hardware that comes with the kit, and I'm hoping it's in there, so I'm going to open that up. Sadly didn't manage to turn up a 8mm screw that I needed, but I did turn up one that was 6mm long. Your other alternative is there are two mounts, and anybody building the CF100 version of this kit, you'll see that on this parts tree there are actually a number of mountings for servos, and they say to use the smaller one, but we're in fact going to use this larger one. So you could relocate one of these screws for mounting the servo to the mounts to that position. Point just to note is the orientation of this part. You need to make sure that the three countersunk holes are facing upward. So these three holes facing upward. And you'll see that there is a slot in one of these holes, and that will allow you to adjust the two mountings for the servo to get that to fit well. So just nip that one up gently, because that's the one that we're going to want to slide to get the width correct for the servo that we're using. This one you can then tighten right up. Obviously just be careful not to strip, because we're only going into plastic and they're a very coarse thread on here. What I'm just going to do is offer up the servo, find out its location, and then just check whether we need to move this particular mounting, and it does, just needs to go out a fraction. Yeah, it's a better mounting. That done, we can just tighten this one up finally. Checking that they're square to the edges of the plate. This now mounts on top of the axle that we built in the earlier parts. There are three screws, and the smaller screw goes towards the rear of the axle. If we pop that one in first. And the two front ones. I'll just tighten those down off camera and come back to mount up the servo. Now we need to mount the servo horn on front of the servo. You'll see on this parts tree there were three different servo horns for all the major suppliers of servos, and you'll also see they've included a servo saver, so that's good. If you're using the truck to bash and you want to protect your servo, you can construct this servo saver and just offer that extra protection. So to mount it, it's just a screw. There's an aluminium sort of cupped washer, and then the actual arm. Important thing is to get the arm fitted 90 degrees to the body of the servo. That's why we went through the process of setting it up into neutral, so you can see that's 90 degrees to the horizontal. And then just fix that in like that. And to mount this onto the servo mounts, it goes from the front. Whoops. And then there are 4 screws that mount in like so. I'll tighten those up off camera. I've zoomed in a little here just to make it clearer building the steering links. Just want to point out a couple of things on section 30. Again, there are errors in which parts they reference, and it goes back to the parts tree 32 and 5 that we spoke of when we were doing the suspension links. And on the 800.05, it actually says you need part 4, which is this part, when actually it wants you to look for these two parts, which I believe are part 2 on that tree. However, the parts on 832 you can have off here if you've not used them for your suspension links. Otherwise, they're parts 1 on here. I hope that kind of clears up any confusion that anybody might have. And let's get on to building links. So just to remind you, these grub screws, you load them on your driver. You want to wind them into the end of the eyelet and just offer them up to one you've already done, because you want to get them sort of halfway in. Now we just need to wind those eyelets onto this aluminium section. One on either end. And they should then be parallel as well. So you may just need to wind them a little further round. There we are. And those little eyelets. Just push those sections in. Now to install the top steering arm, to get the spanner in, you may just need to move this, so gently turn the servo horn round, and that will then just allow you to get your spanner onto the back. So if we do that, load the nylon nut into the spanner. Just note the orientation of these parts that are in the eyelets, that they're the right way around. That's quite important. A bit. Again, these are nylon nuts, you don't need to tighten them up too tight. Just enough to hold it. Okay. Okay, so return that servo horn to vertical. Just want to point out, anybody building the CF100 kit rather than the Honcho, there is an error in the manual where it says to put this bottom steering arm. We're going to be fitting it on top of this steering arm here, and in the manual it shows you to go below, but this bar should actually be parallel, so it should be sat on top as well. So just bear that in mind when you're putting those together. So what we have to do, on the right hand side, you have to drop that bolt through. There is then a spacer. And then we need to put that on, and that's going to thread through the steering arm. So I'll just pop a couple of turns on, and the other side similarly, drop it through there, and they go in the holes that are nearest to you as you're building, so the ones towards the front of the truck. And again, that'll thread in there, and we'll just put a couple of turns on. What I'll go ahead and do is put the two nylon nuts on the bottom, and then come back and just show you the completed item. You can see here now the top and bottom suspension arms completed. Just want to point out here, this end, the bolt that is supplied with the Honcho kit, I can show it to you, actually comes out quite a few threads at the bottom, and in the manual it's been spec'd as an 18mm, whereas in the CF100 it's a 15, as we fitted to this servo horn, which would be much better because there's less threads. We may find that that's been an error that's been corrected, and the extra bolts that are supplied that we found earlier, there may well be one in there, so if there is, I'll then change that out as I build the kit. Now the next video is actually quite exciting because it starts to feel like a vehicle. We're going to open bag F and then bring the transmission and put it together with the chassis rails, and then go through the process of hooking up both the suspension links, the drive shafts, and obviously then the axles to the chassis. So it's really going to start looking like a truck. We'll also put in the little receiver box, the battery tray, and on the Honcho there are some rock sliders. So do subscribe, please do comment and rate, and if you need any help, please get in touch. And I'll get the videos up as quickly as I can. Thanks for watching.